Hey, you guys can go ahead and take a seat, and some of y'all are like, what's going on right now? Like, there's supposed to be music happening right now. Hey, listen, every once in a while, we like to mix it up on you guys a little bit and just change it up. It's also a way that for all of you guys that are showing up late, that we can get you to actually show up on time. And so, like, you just never know what's gonna happen in service. By the way, my name is TJ. I'm one of the pastors here. And man, we are actually so glad that you are here with us today. And here's what I know. Today is gonna be a little bit different, but I promise you this, that if you'll open up your heart and you'll open up your mind to receive what God has for you, I think God's gonna do something really, really impactful in people's lives and in your life here today. Before we dive into that, can you guys help me welcome everybody that's watching online and everybody at our Lighthouse Point location? Come on, Parkland, let's show them. I'll explain here in a second, but no, actually I must explain right now. Because I think it's important to set the tone. I was just talking with somebody in our foyer that had attended the first service, and they said, TJ, I wish my husband and I would have known this, what you're gonna teach, because it would have saved us so much pain and so much heartbreak and so much brokenness in our relationship. And the problem that we had is that we wouldn't have believed what you're gonna say until we went through it. And so I wanna set that tone right now, because you're gonna say, that doesn't impact me and that doesn't have any consequence to me. And I'm here to tell you, you think that, but you have no idea. And I'm also gonna say, like, this message is not gonna feel good. Like, this is not gonna be easy. In fact, most weekends, what we do is we package everything really, really nice, and we put it in a nice little bow so that it's like beautiful, and you like unwrap it and you're like, oh man, this is such an awesome message. This is not gonna be that weekend. This is probably gonna be one of the most difficult and hardest messages that you're gonna hear. It's probably gonna be one of the most intense messages you've ever sat through at our church. And it's gonna end with some hard challenges. And so my hope for you today, and my hope for people, is that honestly, that marriages and future marriages can be saved and restored, and that God can do something supernatural today so you don't have to go through pain and heartbreak later. So that's my disclaimer. Now that the disclaimer's over, we can get into it. I was thinking this week, one of my favorite holidays is Thanksgiving. Where are my Thanksgiving people at? Where are the people that like that? It's like my favorite holiday. And the reason it's my favorite holiday is because it has everything to do with one of my favorite subjects, food. Come on, where are the foodies at? Where are my foodies at? Like, there's something about Thanksgiving, the way we designed our Thanksgiving. We always have a lot of people over at our house, and we've just kind of made it like every Thanksgiving we invite people that don't really have family around that we've gotten to know. Hey, come be our family this Thanksgiving. And our house is kind of built around, crazy idea. My stepdad was like, hey, let's build an island when we were remodeling our kitchen. And it's 8 foot by 8 foot. Now, it's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen in your life, because inside of that 8 foot by 8 foot island is a center that we cannot reach even if we want to. It's like, why did we do this? It makes no sense. But around Thanksgiving, it's awesome because everybody comes over, and here's kind of our deal. Hey, we'll cook the meat. You bring the best size that you have. And so everybody's bringing their casseroles and their pies, and man, they're like, we get some macaroni and cheese. We get all kinds of different ethnic foods, because a lot of times we have some Brazilians there, we have some Puerto Ricans there, we have some different South American countries that are there, and so we get a kind of a smorgasbord of all these different flavors and foods, and it is so awesome because you walk around that, and we just make like a big line, and everybody's like, I'm gonna be good, and I'm just gonna have a single plate at Thanksgiving. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. The problem is that single plate is like piled 6 feet high, and like you gotta have a wheelbarrow to get it to your table where you're gonna eat, and people, they just eat and they eat and they eat, and it's like so good, and at the end of the meal, people are always like, ah, and that's always just the women, you know, it's just like, and the reason we're all like, ah, and is because it wasn't that the food was good while it was good. The reason we're like, is because all of us have appetites, and our appetites always tell us just a little bit more. Like, just a little bit more. And what happens is our appetites will make us miserable because they're always telling us just one more bite. Come on, just one more bite of mac and cheese made with real butter. And don't tell me it's not real butter. We're not eating that crap in our house. You can take that to some vegan's house. We're eating real butter at our house. Sorry if you're vegan. Actually, I'm not. You should try butter. It's awesome. But we become miserable because of our appetites because we've allowed it to take us to an uncomfortable place. And our appetites are always demanding more. Now, some of you are like, why are you talking about appetites? And I think just like our appetite for food can take us to places where we're sometimes miserable, I think that our appetites are constantly and continuously driving us for more. And if we aren't getting that fulfilled in our relationship and in our marriage, what it will cause us to do is instead of looking in that place, we'll start looking in other places to fulfill the appetites that we have. We'll start looking outside of our relationship. We'll start looking outside of our marriage to that guy or that girl that we believe will meet the appetite that we're craving within us. And the problem with that is when you do that, everything in your life gets jacked up. Here's what I know, all the single people are like, I'm so glad he's talking to married people today. And single people, listen, your desire to be married, that appetite that you have will cause you to give up your relationship for Jesus, for something that will give you something temporary and satisfying today that will cost you a bloodstained cross. And let me just tell you, when you do that, it ends bad. In fact, some of you singles, you're dating somebody that you shouldn't be, and the reason you are is because there is an appetite deep down inside of you and a desire that is for more that is causing you to compromise. And it will leave you broken and busted and disgusted in life. And so I want to talk to us about appetites today, and I want to talk to us specifically about three things, and I'm going to talk about three things that impacts us at the end. The first thing is God created them and sin distracted them. Like, think about it. Everything in Genesis chapter 1 and 2, everything that God created in the very beginning was good. He said, like, God created food and it was good. Like the other night, I had a filet mignon that I cooked, and it was like, it was so good, it would make a Methodist say amen. Like, it was good. And God created wine, and it was real wine for all the recovering Baptists that are out there, and the Presbyterians that were like, yes, it was. But like God created sex, and it was good. Oh, you shouldn't talk about sex. No. Who are you gonna let talk about sex? Hollywood, they haven't figured it out. No, we need to talk about sex. Like, God did not find Adam and Eve and go, hey, don't talk about this. I think when God created Eve, he walked up to Adam, he's like, what's up, bro? Knuckles. Like it was a good thing. But then Genesis chapter 3, sin enters the stage and is introduced, and food turns to gluttony. Desire for wine turns to drunkenness. Desire for sex turns to perversion. See, appetites can be good when they're in the healthy place, but appetites can also be super destructive if they're outside the right place. So God created them, but sin, what it does is it distracts them. Number two, appetites are never fully and completely satisfied. See, I know what happens at Thanksgiving is we say, hey, we're gonna eat at 12. We're gonna eat our meal. The problem is we don't eat our meal at 12 because we have a whole bunch of people that are from the south of here that like to show up. And if you say 12, that means like 1:30. Come on, somebody. Brazilians, there's a thing called a clock. Hispanics, it's called a clock. We wanna go to bed at 8:30. We don't wanna start drinking coffee at 8:30 at night, okay? So like, just talking to some people here. You get invited over to our house, we show up on time. But like, so what happens is we get there, we eat, and then what happens is we waddle over to the couch, we fall down, we take a nap because the Lions are playing football, and then we wake up about 3:45, and what do? We waddle back over to the food, and we eat some more. Why? Because appetites are never fully and finally and completely satisfied. So what happens when it comes to relationships is a lot of us, we look at our spouse and we think, you're supposed to fulfill everything I need in my life. Like, you're supposed to be God for my life. And I want you to know that your spouse can never fulfill that role. Marriage was not given to us for our satisfaction, but it was actually given to us for our sanctification. And if you think your marriage is gonna satisfy every desire and want in your life, you're gonna be completely and utterly disgusted by it, because it wasn't given to satisfy every need. They were given to actually make you look more and more like Jesus. Why? Because the Son of God didn't come to be served, but to serve others by giving his life, not satisfying his life through it. And a lot of us, we're looking for somebody else to give us something that only God can give us. And Jesus is going, man, I want you to pursue them like I pursued you, which means dying to yourself. But your appetite will always tell you, no, there's more, get more. Number 3, your appetite will always whisper now, not later. I'm a product of the 90s, and in the 90s, we had this incredible thing called dial-up internet. Anybody remember dial-up internet? Everybody that's under the age of 25 is like, what's that? It's like, Google it. It's this crazy thing. Like we had an internet that was connected to our telephone line at the house. And I know some of you guys are like, what's a telephone line at the house? Okay, like there was this thing that was attached to the wall. And here's the deal. When you got on the internet, the thing that you were praying for was that nobody would call your house, right? Because the moment somebody called, knocked you off the internet. It's the worst thing. 28K modem. AOL, you're like, if you are a product, then you remember that. And it's like, man, I got on the internet. I remember the first time I got an email from somebody that was like 2 paragraphs long. It took 30 minutes to download. If God help you if somebody sent you a picture, it'd be like, I could go plant a garden and harvest it before that joker would download. But today we have cell phones that are more powerful than the computers that sent people to the moon. Like, it's crazy. We live in a day and an age where we want it now, and we want it fast, and we want it the way we want it. Like, we're the only people that stand next to a microwave and are like, hurry up. What's taking so long? The problem is when we take that mentality into our marriage and into our relationships, it jacks everything up. Because here's what I know about you, because you're here at Coastal, is that you're jacked up. Like, you're messed up, and your marriage is messed up. Here's why your marriage is messed up: because you're a sinner. And the person you married is a sinner. And somebody that's engaged, no, they're a saint. No, they're a sinner. You just haven't figured it out yet. You're blind to it. Anytime you put 2 sinners together, there are going to be issues. There's gonna create some tension. And some married people have more problems than others. But what happens is when we have problems, because we live in an instantaneous society, we want it fixed right now. And we start to realize how long it's gonna take to work out those problems. Come on, somebody. You're like, man, I would rather trade this model in for the model I perceive that doesn't have any problems. The problem is you're still bringing you to that new model. And you're the issue. And here's what happens for so many of us. So many of us, we're fighting in our marriage. And when you're fighting in your marriage, your partner becomes the enemy. Because I'm fighting them. But when I'm fighting for my marriage, they're no longer my enemy. They've got my back. And now we're not fighting each other, we're actually addressing and going after the problem. The problem is with problems is they don't get fixed instantaneously. It takes some time and it takes some effort. And if I'm fighting in my marriage, I'll dip out really fast. But if I'm fighting for it, I'll take as much time as it takes to work that problem out. Now, singles, you guys want it now more than anybody else. I talk to single people that are like, man, all I want is to just be married. And if all you want is to just be married, here's what you'll be: just married. But TJ, you have no idea what it's like to be single. Actually, I do. And I would say you have no idea what it's like to just be married. And you have no idea what it's like to be married to the wrong person because you wanted something now instead of later. And listen, I've never seen a marriage go bad for a lack of knowledge. Like, I've never sat down with a couple that was struggling and go, hey, sir, you shouldn't sleep with other people that aren't your spouse, and them go, oh my gosh, I've never heard that before. Let me write that down. I'm so sorry. I did not know I couldn't do that. Never seen a marriage fail for a lack of knowledge, but I've seen a lot of marriages fail for a lack of curbing their appetites. And I think a lot of marriages are struggling right now because there's a lot of appetites that haven't been curbed. They've just been throwing more at it. And I want to take a look at a story out of Genesis chapter 25. And it's a story of a guy named Isaac, and he had two sons named Jacob and Esau. A lot of kids named Jacob, not a lot of kids named Esau. There's a reason why. I'm about to tell you why. Genesis chapter 25, it says this: the boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. And I just want to stop because what you see right away from this story is that Esau is a daddy's boy. He liked the open country. He liked to hunt. He wears a John Deere tractor hat, camo shirt, Wrangler jeans, got some dip in his mouth, handgun, shotgun, four-wheel drive. Esau is a redneck, okay? That's what Esau is. And then there's Jacob, and Jacob is quiet and stayed among the tents. Like, Jacob wore skinny jeans and fashionable items. He was watching cooking shows and decorating shows, and he was artistic. Like, he didn't have a shotgun, he had an artistic drawing pad. Like, that's who he was. Just so you know, he wins, because I know somebody's like, oh, you're making fun of me, and you're gonna write me an email. Don't write me an email, okay? It's just Bible. Verse 29, it says, once when Jacob was cooking some stew, he's watching Bobby Flay, and he's like, ooh, let's try this, right? Esau came in from the open country famished. Now, I don't know if you've ever been famished, but I'm not talking about like 2 hours no snack. I didn't have any beef jerky. He's like, man, this guy feels like he is about to die. He said to Jacob, quick. Now, notice the urgency, and the urgency always causes you to make bad decisions. He said, Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. He's like, man, I'm hungry and I've gotta have some of that soup, and I've gotta have it right now. That soup can solve all of my problems. That soup can solve all of my issues. That soup can take away my pain. That soup can fill all of my needs. That soup can make me feel good. That soup is what I need right now. And it says, Jacob replied, first, sell me your birthrights. Now, don't skip this because this is a big deal. Like, this isn't a big deal to us, but in Hebrew culture, this would have been like, what are you talking about? Because there are three elements to a birthright that were very, very significant. The first was a financial element. The firstborn son always got twice as much as all the other siblings financially. It was a huge financial blessing. There was also a perception element. The firstborn was considered to be the most blessed person in the family by God himself. There was also an authority element because when the father died, the firstborn son would take authority over the entirety of the family. And so there's three elements that Jacob's talking about when he goes, hey, first sell me your birthright. Jacob's like, give me the thing that is most valuable in your life. He's like, I'll give you this thing if you'll trade it for some soup. I just want you to think about that deal. Like one of the cars that I had when we were trying to get ourselves out of debt is I had a 1994 Taurus station wagon. It was primer gray. It had no interior instruments that actually worked. Like I never knew if I had gas or not, so I always just had to top it off just to make sure. Like it was anointed with like 2 quarts of oil every week just to get from A to B. Like it was a piece of junk car. It had like 257,000 miles on it. And can you imagine if somebody walked up and was like, hey, I heard you have a car. Sell me your car. And I'm like, you can have my 1994 Taurus station wagon for $1 million. You'd be like, who in their right mind would do that? And the Bible says In verse 32, look, I am about to die. Now here's the question, was he about to die? No. Have you ever noticed that when you get emotional, you do the craziest things? Esau said, what good is the birthright to me? But Jacob says, swear to me first. So he swore an oath, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and he drank and he got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. Probably the saddest story in the Bible. But the question becomes in my mind, was Esau actually satisfied? Temporarily, yes, but long-term, no. Long-term, the destruction, the despair that was brought upon him and his family was actually heartbreaking and devastating. And I want to talk to you about 3 lies that I think a lot of us buy into, that Esau bought into, that I believe that many of you are actually buying into today, that we need to address so that we don't sell our birthright for a bowl of stew. The first one is this, it's the accomplishment lie. Because we've all heard the grass is greener on the other side. No, the grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where it's getting watered. The grass is greener where the water bill is higher. The grass is greener where there's fertilizer being put down. And what it means is that we're always looking to something else, thinking that if I could just get there, it would give me everything I want. I remember when I was in elementary school, I remember thinking, man, when I get to middle school, that's where I'm gonna thrive. And then when I got to middle school and I didn't thrive there, I was like, man, when I get to high school, that's when everything's gonna come in alignment for me. And then I thought, man, when I get to college, and for some of you, college was some of the best years of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of your life. And then you thought to yourself, like, man, you know, when I get a job, then I'm gonna be satisfied. And then you thought, man, when I get married, then I'll be happy. Oh no, when I have kids, then I'll be happy. We always think the next thing, whatever that next thing is, will be the thing that makes us happy. And here's what happens when Esau comes in and he sees the bowl of soup. He goes, that's gonna make me happy. So happy that I'll give up my future for this temporary thing. That'll make me happy if I can just have that. And some of you, that's exactly how you're treating your marriage. Ladies, that guy at work, he'll listen to you. He's always so sensitive to what's going on in your life. Man, you're trading your life for a bowl of stew. Men, that woman at work, she dresses a little bit provocatively and you think, man, she would do things that my spouse would never do. You're trading it for a bowl of soup. And here's what it really is. It's, I'm not happy with him or her. And we think if I can just get with them, that will make me happy. And I'm just here to tell you, it is a lie. See, sooner or later, somebody has got to pay, and the person that's got to pay is you. It's a lie. Like how many of us would sign up today if I was like, hey, Coastal's going skydiving today. Anybody wants to come? You can go. Come on, skydiving. Who wants to go with me? Yeah, some of you. What if I told you 7 out of the 10 parachutes wouldn't open? Here's why I said that. 7 out of 10 second marriages don't work. We just think to ourselves, well, if I just had them, then everything would be good in your life. And the reality is that statistically, it's already proven that that doesn't work. But people are diving out of one relationship, jumping into another, thinking that the next one will work because we have some mindset issues. And there's some lies that people believe. There's ridiculous arguments and excuses that people make. One that I hear all the time is, I married the wrong person. And your argument would be, my spouse is a bowl of stew, and the person that I'm looking at is my birthright. No, the person you chose is your birthright. You just want to justify your decision making. Another one I hear all the time is when we were married, we weren't Christians, so maybe we weren't married in God's sight, like God was blind to that marriage. Like you hid from God? Come on. God was there. He heard the vows, he heard the covenant. But you think because you want to justify your behavior, well, here will be my justification. A few years ago, I would call him a friend that was in the middle of an affair, and I remember sitting down with him and going, I just was honest. I was like, hey, the sex you're having right now is awesome, isn't it? He's like, man, it's rocking my world. I was like, it's so emotional, isn't it? He's like, it's so emotional. It's bliss. I said, that's awesome. But someday you're gonna wake up next to her and you don't even know anything about her. And your kids and your wife and their future, you're giving that all up because you think the grass is greener on the other side, because you think if I just have this, it will fix everything else in my life. And you've not fixed the mental state. Colossians chapter 3 says this, since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your heart on things above where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. Singles, set your mind on things above. You're gonna be tempted. You gotta set your mind on things above. You can't live down here. You gotta set your mind up here. Philippians chapter 4:8, here's what you need to set it on. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Listen, all of this begins right here. It's the accomplishment lie. Here's the second one that a lot of people believe, that will never happen to me. It's a lie. Like, I'm the person that said, that'll never happen to me. I remember when Shayla and I got married, I said, we'll never argue. That lasted 2 days. I remember when I'm gonna be a perfect pastor. I messed that junk up in the first week. Never happened to me. Singles are like, I'm glad they're talking to all these married people. I'm never gonna marry the wrong person. And married people are like, man, I'm glad they're talking about all these people that have jacked up marriages. Whenever you think that can never happen to me, you're setting yourself up for failure. You think like, man, I'm above, and you don't have any parameters that are actually keeping you above. Here's what you have. You have hope. Hope is a false, hope is not something you can build off. You need action. You need some boundaries in life. Like you gotta create some boundaries. Like here's a good boundary. Don't ever travel with someone of the opposite sex alone. Well, you don't understand my business. Yes, I do. Your business is to be a husband and a father. Your business is to be a mother and a wife first before your business is ever at the office. Let's talk about this right here, because here's the deal. Here's the deal. No, my career is that important. No. Your career is gonna end. Listen, your career is temporary. Whatever you're doing right now, they can replace you in 5 minutes. You aren't that valuable, and they will. Like your assignment there is temporary, and your marriage is permanent. So you better understand the assignment. Come on, somebody. I knew that this wasn't gonna be like a lot of fun, but some people need to hear this today. Like, because we don't understand the assignment. We think, well, that's what I got. No, you don't have to do that. You're choosing to do that. And what you're doing is you're setting yourself up in compromising situations. Here's another one. Don't share a meal alone with someone of the opposite sex who is not your spouse. Once again, people are gonna, I have to do this for work. No, you don't. I've been in ministry for 25 years. I've never had to have a meal with somebody of the opposite sex by myself. I've never had to. I could choose to do that, but I don't have to do that, and neither do you. You can choose to live above reproach. Listen, it's like this. It would be like covering yourself in a bucket of blood and jumping into the ocean that's full of sharks and going, I'm not gonna get bit. Why? Because almost every affair that I've talked to has always started over a meal. Stop putting yourself in compromising situations. It's really hard to compromise when you're not in a compromising situation. Because you think I'm too strong and I'm too good. You're not that good. Listen, I love Jesus with all of my heart, and I love my wife with the fullness of who I am, but that doesn't mean that there aren't lustful thoughts that come into my mind. And what do I gotta do? I gotta set up some parameters and some guardrails. I gotta make sure there's stuff on my computer that people have accountability in my life that can call that stuff out. Why? Because I know I'm not above falling. And I don't know why you think you are. Some of you guys, like, you're not actually having an affair, but you're having an affair with the computer. Men and women. Well, you think, I'm not hurting anybody. Ma'am, sir, you're compromising you. And you're not bringing your full self to that relationship, which means you're compromising the relationship. Well, it's not impacting anybody. Coming from the product, I come from a broken home where my dad had an affair. It impacts people. You don't think you're hurting anybody, you're hurting people. You're just too selfish to realize it. Because it's satisfying the desire of your appetite. Singles, don't decide when you're in the backseat of the car whether you're gonna have sex or not. Stop having sleepovers. We're not doing anything. No, but you're setting yourself up to fail. Some of you guys, first date, second date, third date, you're having sex right away. Stop it. In fact, some of you guys need to circle the date today and go, you know what? I'm not dating anybody for a year until I'm madly in love with Jesus and he's enough for me. Like, do you not know your value? You think the only way that somebody will like me is if I give them something. You don't understand your value and your worth. And until you understand your value and your worth, you're not ready to let somebody wine and dine you, because you will just settle for anything if you don't know your value and worth. And you know who knows your value and worth? The creator of the universe, who created you and made you valuable. You're precious. Like, don't compromise on that stuff. And don't think, well, I'm so strong. You're not that strong. You're just not. Here's number 3, it's not that big of a deal lie. Anybody remember the show Saved by the Bell? I love Saved by the Bell. I wanted to be Zach so bad. Like, Zach was the coolest dude in the world. Like, my favorite moment in Saved by the Bell was anytime Zach was about to fight Slater and Slater was about to punch Zach, Zach would call a timeout. He'd be like, time out, and he'd walk out of the scene, he'd grab Screech and he'd put him where he was supposed to be, and he'd go get this vantage point, and then he'd come back in and Screech would get punched. I'd be like, that's awesome. I wish I could do that. Like, I wish I could go back to Esau and be like, time out. Time out, Esau. Because I need you to understand, I need you to get a vantage point of what's about to happen. Like, your family is designed to be the family that's gonna create the tribe of Israel. Like, out of your lineage is gonna become 12 sons. One of those is gonna be Joseph. You're actually gonna be the deliverer of your people. And eventually, the Messiah of the world, Jesus Christ himself, is gonna come out of you. Like, time out. Like, do you realize what you're trading do you realize that you're about to trade your legacy for a bowl of stew? And Esau's like, I'm about to die. And I'd be like, it's probably better for you to die than to sacrifice the future generations. Because you're contemplating an affair, you're in an affair, you're looking at pornography. You're having conversations with somebody that you know is tying you emotionally to them. You think it's no big deal. They just understand me. No, you're tying you're having an emotional affair. James chapter 1 says, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone, but each one is tempted when by his own evil desire he is dragged away and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it's full grown, it gives birth to death. Where it always leads to is death. I don't care how good she looks or how great he listens or how great the sex is. I don't care how screwed up the relationship is. The person you are wanting to compromise with is just a bowl of stew. Singles, some of you you're settling for a bowl of stew. In fact, some of you are sitting next to a bowl of stew. You need to dump that joker out. And let's be honest, it's a tough message to listen to if you know you settle for a bowl of stew. But what I love about our church is we're Coastal Community Church where nobody's perfect and anything's possible. Come as you are because we serve a God that can turn the brokenness into beautiful things. Some of you guys, you're settling for bowls of stew. You're on Tinder, you're going to strip clubs, you're doing all the things. And God's going, don't settle. I want to read the description of Jesus. It says in John chapter 1, verse 14, and the word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory and the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. I love that we serve a God that is full of grace. In fact, his grace right now, I believe, is so sufficient for you. But the only way you fully understand and receive grace is by confronting the truth. Getting honest with yourself and going, here's where I am, and here's what I'm dealing with. And I know that there is compromise that's going on. And listen, it might not be an affair for you, but there's a lot of things going on that are compromising our relationships because our appetites are telling us more. And God, for a lot of us here today, maybe you're living together with somebody else and you're not married. You need to either go get married or you need to get out of that relationship. TJ, you sound extreme. No, I sound biblical. And we're asking God to bless things that his hand is not upon, because that's not the way he does it. It's time for us to get back to biblical truth and stop settling for anything less than the birthright that God has for each and every one of our lives. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. His plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. But it happens when you don't settle for a bowl of stew. And so, I think this is a moment, and I believe that God gave me this word back in 21 days of prayer and fasting for our church specifically, because God's going, it's time to fix some relationships. And it begins with, before you can see the blessing of God, you got to get honest with God. And God can't fix what you won't actually face. And so what does that mean? It means that there needs to be some repentance. And there needs to be some confession. So I'm gonna pray, and then this weekend is a response weekend. Because I think there needs to be some movement in our lives. We can't just stay in the same place and expect our lives to get any different. We gotta make some change. So would you bow your heads as we pray? God, we just come before you. God, here's what I know is that, man, you are wanting to move in people's lives like never before. God, I pray that this would be a reflection moment for every single one of us, that we would assess the realities of our life and where we're at and what's happening within us. And as David prayed, God, search me and know my heart. God, search me and know if there's any wicked way inside of me. God, and I pray that thing would just come to the surface right now in people's lives. And they just wouldn't sit on that thing, but they would know that this is a moment of line of demarcation where I'm gonna make a step, that this is no longer gonna rule my life. It's not gonna be an appetite that's gonna continue to be satisfied. I'm gonna hand that thing over to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I'm gonna trust that he's gonna be my source and he's gonna be my resource and he's gonna meet everything that I need. And God, my prayer is that, man, marriages would be restored here today. God, that relational tension would begin to cease because we're eradicating sin and brokenness out of life. God, I pray right now that singles would commit themselves to purity and reverence to God, and that there would be a generation of families that are building strong homes because they know that the future is at the center of that marriage, and they're not gonna compromise to the left or to the right, but they're gonna stay on the path because they're not gonna give up the future of their children and their children's children and their children's children's children for something that's momentary and doesn't satisfy. God, I pray that you speak to us here today. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.